Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss how the external visual world is processed by the various neuronal components of the eye, the tract leading into the brain, components of the brain, and the primary visual cortex and the other visual cortexes. So what we see, as you remember from the previous class, this is a representation of the retina, and here we have the cones corresponding to L, M and S, and here we have the rods. So how is the information from the cones taken away? These L and M cones are all concentrated in the fovea. So they get the best focus of the eye, so they will cater to very accurate vision, and they will also cater to color vision, and obviously they are only sensitive at bright light. The rods usually scattered all over the retina except for the fovea, and they are very sensitive even to very dim light. And the S cone, the cone which is catering to the blue light spectrum, is not in the fovea, it is just outside the fovea. So these also caters to color. Regarding the bipolar cell carrying them away, this bipolar cell which caters to the rods. So many rods will converge on one bipolar cell. This bipolar cell is a parasol or a diffuse bipolar cell, which signals to a magnocellular ganglion cell. So magnocellular ganglion cell. So collecting light from many rods, this will be contributing to the formation of the magnocellular pathway. So this pathway is sensitive to light. This is sensitive to motion, and the pathway is very fast. This bipolar cell is a midget bipolar cell, midget bipolar cell, a very small bipolar cell compared to this, and it has one-to-one relationship with the cone. One cone will contribute to the depolarization of this midget cell or hyperpolarization of the midget cell, depending on whether it is in the on pathway or off pathway. So suppose this is a on bipolar cell, so it will depolarize, and thereby it will signal the dedicated ganglion cell to pass its information to the lateral geniculate body. This dedicated pathway is the parvocellular pathway. Parvocellular pathway therefore contributes to the sensation of color and to the acuity of vision. So it provides form and color sensation. Then we have the coniocellular pathway. The coniocellular pathway, which is a contribution from the S cone. So they will all form here initially, they will form the optic nerve, and then some of the optic nerve will decussate to the other side, and some of it will remain on the same side as discussed in previous class. So there is this optic chiasma which helps in decussation of optic nerve, and after decussation, the coming together of ipsilateral fibers from the temporal aspect of the eye and the contralateral fiber from the nasal aspect of the eye, they will together form the optic. So suppose here somewhere they will form the optic thread. So beyond is the optic thread. Here to here, optic nerve, and from here to the lateral geniculate body. After there is convergence of ipsilateral temporal fiber and contralateral nasal fiber, you will have the optic tract. So how is the distribution in the lateral geniculate body? The lateral geniculate body is a part of the thalamus. It is the dorsolateral geniculate nuclei of thalamus. We call it the lateral geniculate body or the lateral geniculate nuclei. So the lateral geniculate nuclei is seen to be divided into 6 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The fibers which are coming from the temporal aspect of this eye. So the fibers which are coming from the temporal aspect of the eye, the ipsilateral fiber, here we have signified it as eye ipsilateral fiber, will be entering or will be signaling to the second layer, layer 2, layer 3 and layer 5. So ipsilateral will be signaling to second layer, third layer and fifth layer. This ipsilateral fiber has all the 3 components. Please remember, these ipsilateral fibers have all the 3 components, but they are signaling to specific layers or stratas of the lateral geniculate body. The same is the case with the contralateral fibers, fibers which are coming from the nasal aspect of the other eye. They are signaling to a different strata. So obviously the strata is 1, 4 and 6. So you see, visual signal, although coming from the same hemispheric visual world, that is to say, the visual signal here coming to one lateral geniculate body is coming from the one hemisphere or one half, either the right half or the left half of the visual world, but even till up to lateral geniculate body, they do not mix. There is no mixing of ipsilateral, see, goes to different layers, and the contralateral goes to different layers. So there is no mixing of signal from through the eye till up to the lateral geniculate body. Right? Moreover, the lateral geniculate body has retinotopic maps. So each layer has a map of the visual world. It is like having the sensory homunculus or the motor homunculus, kind of like the representation of the external world, the visual representation of the external world are located in a very coordinated fashion. So there is a labeled line coming from specific rods or cones to specific area of the lateral geniculate body. This is called a retinotopic representation, or lateral geniculate body has a retinotopic map. So all throughout this pathway, till up to lateral geniculate body, and even in the fiber leading from the lateral geniculate body to the primary visual cortex at the occipital lobe, there is constant conservation of the retinotopic distribution of vision. Right. So ipsilateral comes to second, third and fifth layer, contralateral goes to first, fourth and sixth layer. 1. Moreover, the magnocellular pathway will be in first. So magnocellular pathway from the ipsilateral will be in the second layer. So ipsilateral pathway, magnocellular second layer, magnocellular layer from the contralateral will be at the first layer. So magnocellular pathway will be contributing to the first and second layer. So coming to the parvocellular pathway, so you see the midget ganglia from cones giving rise to the parvocellular ganglionic pathway, which goes to the lateral geniculate body and distributes its component to the layer 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th. And also fibers arising from the lateral geniculate body, the geniculocalcarine fiber or the geniculostriatal fiber, which is from the lateral geniculate body to the striate cortex or to the area around the calcarine fissure or to Brodmann area 17 or to the primary visual cortex. Same thing. So they are also carrying the sensation as if a labeled line is continuing. So what they are carrying? So we can see the parvocellular pathway contributing from the ipsilateral side to the third and the fifth layer, and from the contralateral side to the fourth and the sixth layer. Further down, they will be carried as optic radiation. So the optic radiation is also having fibers which are designated as M, lateral geniculate nuclei. That is, they are a continuation of the magnocellular pathway, and P, lateral geniculate nuclei pathway, which is a continuation of the parvocellular lateral geniculate nuclei or lateral parvocellular pathway. What do they carry? They carry the same information as like before. This magnocellular will carry very fast information. They are very fast in transmission of information, and they carry the perception of dim light, and they also help in the detection of movement at the periphery. What do parvocellular pathway carry? Right from the cone still up to the primary visual cortex, they will carry the essence of bright light vision. They have very accurate vision. They will carry form, and they will carry the ability to perceive color. So they come and they contribute to the primary visual cortex. Now, what we need to know next is how the primary visual cortex starts to reconstruct the visual world, the external visual world. What the external visual world falls on our retina as a small three-dimensional imagery. And what do these photoreceptors carry? The photoreceptors have the ability to convey only so much. What do they convey? The rod will be conveying the absence or presence of light. The cones will be conveying, along with absence and presence of light, the various spectrum of light that is present, that is coming and falling on the retina. The cones being very concentrated in a given area will give a very good representation or a very good pinpoint, accurate assessment of the external world. So, and also because of the point-to-point distribution of the receptor, which is reflected in the retinotropic distribution of the bipolar cell, the ganglion cell, and also the cells of the lateral geniculate body, and the neurons which lead from the lateral geniculate body feed up to the cortex. So there is retinotropic map everywhere. So the label line also provides the appreciation of the external world in a very accurate fashion. So these are the few things which are carried by the optic nerve, the optic tract, and the optic radiation to the primary visual cortex. Now the primary visual cortex is interestingly divided in many ways. The first division that we can appreciate is it has ocular dominance. Means that the primary visual cortex is seen to have a ipsilateral and a contralateral strip. Ipsilateral and contralateral, ipsilateral, contralateral. So the primary visual cortex is divided into ipsilateral and contralateral strips. So even here, visual signal from two eyes do not mix. So you have ocular dominance, ipsilateral dominance in a strip, contralateral dominance in another. Ipsilateral in the next strip, contralateral dominance in another. There are other divisions also. What are the other divisions? Let's look into it. First and foremost, we have this distribution of ipsilateral and contralateral dominance. So let us see a strip of the visual cortex. So this is contralateral dominant area. Let's draw another. Ipsilateral dominant area. Of course, in the your solid. We were talking about the further processing of light stimulus from the external receptors via the optic nerve, optic tract, lateral geniculate body, and the geniculostriatal fiber which is coming to the primary visual cortex in the occiput, the 17 Brodmann area number 17. So even when they enter the visual signal from ipsilateral and contralateral fibers do not march. They have their ocular dominant layers. So we got to ocular dominant layer, and we also gradually have some other structures which will help in the further processing of the visual sense. So you have the ipsilateral dominant layer here, the contralateral dominant layer here, and this along with other structures will be known as a hypercolor, and many these forms of visual parallel processing module, and many such modules, many thousands of this module will bring about parallel processing and bring about an appreciation of vision in its form of luminance, sensitivity, ability to detect between bright light and dim light, the ability to detect between colors and its various hues, the ability to detect motion, the ability to detect age, the ability to detect a given important structure like face, or the ability to detect emotion like a smile or a sad face. So all this will be gradually processed. So when the processing happens in this fashion, in modules, this is parallel processing. What you have seen is serial processing. See, some amount of processing in the retina, some amount of processing in the lateral geniculate body, some amount of processing which will happen in the visual cortex, and further down. This is an example of serial processing. This is parallel processing. So what we have, see, the human cortex is, the neocortex at least, is divided into 6 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. This is towards the exterior. This is towards the exterior, outside. So the fourth layer is further subdivided into A, B and C. And the C is further subdivided for our purpose into alpha and beta. Why this subdivision? Because it has been seen that magnocellular pathway will be entering into this layer. So magnocellular pathway will be entering into this layer, and parvocellular pathway will be entering into this layer. The 4C beta. So what are the other components other than ocular dominance? We see very interestingly orientation columns. So, what do you mean by orientation column? It has been seen that the magnocellular pathway, which gives their contribution to various cells of the visual cortex, are having receptive fields which are stimulated by a specific orientation. Receptive fields are stimulated orientation. Means that there are some receptive fields, there are cells having receptive fields in the cortex which will only be stimulated at a given orientation. Suppose the orientation of light is like this. Some cells will be stimulated. Some cells will only be stimulated with the orientation of light coming from the receptors and through the ganglion cells and the lateral geniculate body is like this. Some of them will respond to orientation like this. Some of them will respond to orientation like this or orientation like this. Same. So some will respond to this orientation and also this orientation. So you have cells responding to this orientation, this, and this, which corresponds to this orientation, this. So depending on the orientation, some cells will be stimulated. So you have orientation columns. So these orientation columns are located like so. How are they located? They are located like so. Like this. Some will be stimulated to orientation like this. Some will be stimulated to orientation like this. Some will be stimulated to orientation like this. Some again will be stimulated to orientation like this. Some again will be stimulated by orientation like this, and some again will be stimulated to orientation like this. Or let us draw a little arc. Some will be stimulated by this orientation. Some will be stimulated by this orientation. Some will be stimulated by this orientation. Some by this orientation, and so there will be cells here which will be stimulated by the orientation, the receptive field of the so these are, what are they? They are receptive fields oriented in this way. So you will have oriented cells. Again, there will be repetition. So you have cells responding to orientation. So orientation. Some cells will not respond to orientation, but to direction of movement. So you have one orientation, two direction of movement, and you also have something called the color block. In between the color block, in the area between the color blocks, you have intercolor areas. So the color block will be responding only to colors. They will not respond to direction of movement or orientation of the edge. This will be only responding to the difference in spectrum. So these will have cells which are double opponents. Please remember from previous classes, double opponent cells. So color block and intercolor areas. Intercolor block. So color block and intercolor block. Or color block, intercolor block. What will intercolor block do? That is the area between the color blocks. They will be discerning, or they will be processing forms, and the acuity of vision is defined by the area in the intercolor. So this is the processing which happens in the P1 or the primary visual cortex, Brodmann area number 17, the striatal cortex, or the area around the calcarine fissure. It's all the same. So there are further processings. So we'll talk about that in a later class.